Hey folks, welcome to Creative Side Podcast. It's great to be back starting the podcast. We've been in a planning time frame, I would say, Casey, and we are back now.
Yep, we're back.
We are back and we're starting to shoot. We're super happy about that. And our guest today is Lea Ann
Klarner.
That's right. I practiced it like 3 times and I forgot exactly how to say it, Lea Ann.
No worries.
But anyway, we're back at it, and I'm super happy to be back to get some more episodes rolling.
Yeah.
And also super happy to talk to Lea Ann today. Lea Ann is in the senior care industry. And Lea Ann, tell us a little bit about your business and kind of tell us a little bit about that, a little bit about you.
Well, great. First, thank you for having me here today. It's a pleasure. My story is that I have a native of Hopkins County, grew up here, went to Western and then to Brescia for my master's. I have a 30-year career in hospital administration. And during that time and working in various roles in the hospital world, one day I can remember I said, someday I want to be a care navigator. I want to be an advocate. At that point, I really didn't know what the term was. And so I actually had that opportunity. About 8 years ago, I came back to care for my mom, and she has dementia. I think seniors are special people.
Absolutely.
Very special. And so I worked a couple of places, and then the last 5 years before I started this business, I was running an assisted living and memory care in Lexington, and that really gave me the experience of understanding even another side of seniors and caring for them. So God opened the door for me in the fall of 23 to start thinking and figuring out this business, and it's called Senior Care Consulting and Solutions. And my real goal is to help families and businesses. For families, I will help them navigate that journey, whether it doesn't matter where they are in the journey. Right. So if they're someone, maybe a family member that they're just dealing with chronic illnesses with their aging parent or loved one, or if it's somebody that has dementia, and we all know that's a very long journey. Mm-hmm. So I'll go and we'll meet with them, talk with them, hear their story, listen. And then really, I went back and got my certified senior advisor and my certified dementia practitioner. And for me, that I felt I needed to make sure I had not only my hospital and healthcare career to lean on, but also additional benefit, because I want to be that expert for them and give them information and education and guidance. Really what I do is help them make informed decisions. Mm-hmm. So whether that's choosing from aging in place to coming to assisted living, whether that's assisted living, memory care, or what's the difference between assisted living and skilled nursing?
Right.
Folks just don't understand all that, and that's where I want to be that advocate and help navigate. Also, just even the healthcare system, it's such a maze. Mm-hmm. Casey, you were just talking, you work at Owensboro Health mm-hmm. and healthcare, and it's such a complex system, and families don't understand the ins and out. And so for me, that's another opportunity to help navigate. Make sure they're seeing the right doctors, getting them to the right care, whether that's home health coordination, wound care coordination, whatever it might be. So that's how I work. And I can do as much or little as they want. So
you mentioned aging in place. For people who aren't familiar with that term, what is that? Aging
in place is when someone wants to stay in their home. Mm-hmm. And more we see the articles say that baby boomers, which is that group of folks that were born from 1964 to 1930, I can't remember exactly, but it's those folks are turning 65 at 10,000 people a day. Mm. I'm a baby boomer at the very end of the baby boomers. And so they want to age in place. That means staying at home and getting care or being able to live there. And I know when my work with assisted living, we find that people are staying home longer and longer. But what we can do is coordinate resources that can come in and help them, whether that's caregivers. You can start out with a small amount, go to 24/7, and there's different resources out there. So that's how I help them with that part of the NAP journey.
Awesome. Have you noticed any hesitation from family members who have to make that decision of putting their loved one in a resident home?
Yeah, well, it's hard. There's a lot of guilt. Shane has recently had his mom at Palmer Place Assisted Living, and Shelby was such a sweet little lady. I will miss her, and I loved her smiles. But you had to make that decision about 4 years ago. But it comes a time when they're just not safe to live at home. And Shane, you were telling your story of how your mom said, I think it's time.
For me, it was, when my dad passed away 5 years ago, and I knew that my mom wouldn't be able to stay in the family home or anything like that. So I got her an apartment because she was driving, she was doing all these things, and so we got her there, and it was close to me, and I worked traveling a lot, so it's incredibly hard because I was traveling a lot. In the early days, it was, since she was pretty self-sufficient, me just checking in on her, every other day or so, was okay. And, but then she got to a point where she did come to me. I hear stories of people when their folks get older, the fight of taking the keys away, the fight of, these different things. I was concerned about that. But she had came to me, after she made a couple driving bumbles. Okay, nothing bad, thank goodness. Yeah. I think she went through the drive-through at one of the restaurants backwards, come in, just some things like that. And she was like, I don't think I really should be driving anymore. And I immediately jumped on that because I was thinking that. I said, yeah, I think you're right, Mom. Let's figure out another solution. So that caused me to have to give a little more and everything to help her get, go to the grocery store for her and do those things. She was still fine living on her own, but just didn't need to be in a motor vehicle. It wasn't safe for her or other drivers on the road. So being able to recognize that and deal with that for me was a very important thing. It's not just her, it's about the other people that are out there on the road too. Then as time went on a little more, her dementia kind of progressed a little more, and it got to a point where we were like, hey, you really don't need to be here. And she's like, yeah, I think it's time that I need to go to Palmer Place.
That's really great, Shane, that your mom agreed to that, because so many folks don't. They want to stay home. Yeah. And so that's where my services, as well as like with assisted living, that's what we're here for, is to help give them a comfortable kind of, I call it a home away from home, where they have their own apartment, they can bring their own furnishings, but yet we take care of all the heavy lifting with meals, laundry, housekeeping, and then we also really provide that personalized care. So someone can come into assisted living and maybe they are okay and don't need any help at the moment, but just not ready to cook meals that continue that. And if you're living alone, who wants to cook? So it gives them community and social. Whereas then when they start to need that, we can take care of all their personal care, showers, bathing, dressing, medications. What I've learned over the last few years is that the first two things that I think happens with seniors is they start to forget their medications. They won't take them timely, or they take them
too much.
Too much.
Did I take that?
Yeah. Did I take that? Well, I better take that again. And then they get the fear of falling in the bathroom or the shower. And so that's really where we can help. So if it's aging in place, you might bring in a caregiver just to help with the bathing and the showering for a while.
Yeah.
But, and then the medications, there's systems out there which will auto dispense and then let them, the you as the adult child know that mom's taking her meds.
Right.
But if it becomes a time then you're ready for assisted living, you can do that and transition. And then they have the 24/7 care they need.
I think with Mom, when she did transition to assisted living, I was super happy about it because Mom has always been, her and my dad were together for almost 60 years, and they were together all the time. And when he passed away, all of a sudden she became totally by herself. And I can kind of understand that from my standpoint, traveling for 20 years. I mean, I've spent a lot of nights in hotels alone and stuff like that. And, but I've kind of got to a point in my life where I'm okay with the alone time. I like a little bit of alone time. But anyway, getting her to Palmer Place where there's other residents that she can go out and play bingo and interact and engage with other people, eat every meal with people and sit at the table and make new friends. I was so happy to see that. But the whole time, I think you said it earlier, seniors, they want to stay home. And Mom, over time, she wanted to go home. And I think that's just as I've walked through this with her and the dementia thing, it seems like they get to a point where home is where they want to go. And probably even if they were at home, they still want to go home.
Right.
But,
and that's called timeline confusion sometimes with the dementia folks, is that as they walk the journey and there's several stages of dementia, they think that they're actually back maybe in a younger version of themselves. They think that maybe their mother is still living and that they want to go and be with their mom. I deal with that daily. My mom thinks that her mom and her husband are both alive, but my dad has passed 25 years ago and her mom has passed several years ago. But we just there's a phrase that was coined called timeline confusion, but embrace their reality. And that really taught me a lot, is you're better to just go along with it and embrace it, because when you disagree with it, it actually creates more fear and anxiety for them. So it's really nice just to be able to say, oh, they're fine. Mine is, Mom, they know you're here and I'm taking good care of you and that's what they want. Okay. And many times that satisfies her and we go on.
Yeah.
So that's a really good thing. But Shane, when you mentioned that, I have a really interesting story that I'd love to share.
Okay.
So many folks that are out there, you and I were fortunate. We had great parents and we were fortunate that we were able to take care of our parents, just like I think you're taking care of your mom's still alive and those things and managing that. But for many families, there's people that don't have anyone. Maybe they're solo agers that don't have children, or maybe the children are in, Texas and not in Kentucky. And that's another way that my company can help. And I had the opportunity earlier this year to work with a gentleman who his family didn't really have any adult children that could help. He did have a granddaughter. However, she was young and didn't know what to do. And how do you know how to navigate something for someone when you're so young? And so I was able to help that family. And he had been living alone in an apartment by himself for over 20 years, or the last 20 years that he'd lived in that apartment, but the last, say, 10, pretty much by himself. It almost got into a hoarding situation only because he really couldn't take good care of himself. And I got introduced while he was at the hospital, and we were able to get him out of the hospital. We brought him to the assisted living. We got him the furniture set up correctly. And at first he was very, very reluctant. He wasn't saying, well, I want to go. He was more like, I don't know about this. And so after about a week, though, what was really cool is he said to me, I didn't know there was so much help. And I said, yes, that's what we're here. Let us help you. So he's getting nutritious meals. He's getting showers. He's now getting his medications like he's supposed to. This gentleman has gone 180. I mean, he has been from in a bad situation till now. He comes out, he plays Gingo, he goes to devotionals, he's, wanting to involve and engage in people. And it's such a blessing to see that, how just good meals, good hygiene, and making sure that they're getting their medications properly, getting them to their doctor's appointments, and that can help their quality of life and well-being. And for me, that's what it's all about, giving them quality of life.
Yeah, it is. And, for me, I've thought about, and when you start to take care of your aging parent, you start to think a little bit more about things that you really don't think about. But for me and my wife, we've begun to think more about, okay, one day we're going to be there and we're going to be aging. And, it's caused us to think a little differently about how to get things in order when we get there. And, so that our kids, don't have mounds of things that they got to deal with. We deal with those things in advance. But I was kind of joking, but not really joking with my wife. I said, when I get to the age to go to assisted living or something like that, if I go, I'm just going to hang out and have a great time because, so many years I've been in a hotel and I love the idea of just being able to get up and go down and get breakfast and sit, drink coffee and talk to people. So if I wind up at Palmer Place or one of your facilities, we might wind up together.
That's right. We're about the same age, so that's right. Exactly. But, that is so true what you say, and that is the preparation. And I would encourage everyone, make sure, talk to your family, talk to your parents, learn what they want. So, and get things in order, both financially and legally, making sure you have that power of attorney, you have that advance directive, because if you don't, and then there's a crisis or there's an event, then things happen where you have to get emergency guardianship or conservatorship and those things. And I don't get into that level of help, but what I have done is try to build a network around me so that those professionals can help them. So, do, because it's so key. And then learn what mom or dad wants. If I fall out and have a heart attack and I'm unresponsive, do you want me to be revived, or what do you want? Yeah. And those things and those questions, and do I want to age in place, or am I okay to try senior living and see what it's like? And those are definitely very good point.
Yeah, it is to to know those things. For me, I knew those things with my parents, and I don't know what the right word is here, but I knew enough to. Wanted to know those things. You
knew enough to make sure mom and dad were covered with those things.
I wanted to know what they wanted, and I wanted to honor their wishes throughout their life, and really tried to understand where they were coming from, and this, that, and the other. Even though there may be some things in their life that that were wishes that maybe didn't align with what I'm like, what, really? But it's them, that you're honoring. So, you honor that stuff. But I would like. Do you got any other questions about that kind of stuff, Casey?
Well, I wanted to ask you, what advice do you have for family members who aren't using the services of an advocate? What red flags do they need to pay attention to when seeking out a resident living for their family member?
Well, that's a great question. I think that the key for me in my, maybe it comes from my hospital background of focusing on patient care and quality. And I think the same for assisted living or memory care or wherever it is. I want to see a place that's going to provide good care for my mom or whoever I'm looking for. And so you want to go visit. You want to sometimes pop up when there's not an expected time, just walk in and see how things are going. You want to ask questions like, what is the caregiver to resident ratio? And that is key. Back in Lexington, we had a 1-to-8 caregiver to resident ratio. That was a huge differentiator for us. A lot of times I've heard people say it can be a lot more, and you want to make sure that there's staffing to ensure your loved one gets the care they need. And of course, you're going to want to look at everything, all the services. But for me, I'm very much in building the model that I work with the 2 assisted livings, one Palmer Place in Providence and Carriage Hall in Hopkinsville. It's about care. And their philosophy is really about care. We want those social activities we talked about with bingo and that part, but really it's that coordination of care and keeping them safe and making sure that they're getting all the things they need from their medications, their nutritious meals, and oversight. And then that helps them have a better quality of life. So just really asking good questions. And for me, call me. I don't mind. I'll talk to anybody for 30 minutes, just have a conversation and see if I can be of assistance. And then if I can't, we won't. But if I can be of value, I'll be glad to do that with them.
Lea Ann, this is probably a good point to ask. There's some other things I want to get to, but it'd probably be a good point to give the people your contact information, your website, or how could they get a hold of you?
The easiest way is really just to call me. It's 270-841-2550. I do have a website. It's called seniorcaresolutions.co. And yes, that's .co. And those are really, I'm also on Facebook, and I have both a LinkedIn page as well. And so just reach out. I'll have a phone. You can go on my website and fill out a little form and we can connect. And just really, I'm hoping to help educate folks and give guidance because I want folks to have a quality of life.
It's so important, and I'm speaking from somebody that's just walked through this.
Yes.
It's so important to have somebody like Lea Ann in your corner. So if you guys are out there and you got aging parents, definitely reach out to Lea Ann or somebody that can help you, because there's going to be some things that you're not going to know. And like there's things I know right now that I didn't know 3 years ago for sure.
Right.
And there are things that I know right now that I wish I would have known 3 years ago. And
that's the one other thing. If I can't be of value, sometimes I know resources or people because I've tried to entrench myself into this world here in Western Kentucky. So whether that's from Evansville to Clarksville, down the Penny Ryle, I try to have that community. The other thing is a caregiver support group. We started a caregiver support group earlier this year. It actually does meet in Providence at Palmer Place. It's once a month. But we have folks from Madisonville that come as well. Find one of those. If you're interested in joining ours, come. I find it even helpful. Even though I'm the facilitator, I'm a caregiver. And you need your own self-care. That's such an important piece of caregiving, is taking time and regrouping and figuring out. And the question that comes to me a lot of times, and actually in our caregiver support group, we were talking about it just earlier last week, is when do you know it's time to bring somebody in if you don't want to move them yet to assisted living? What is it? When is the time?
Yeah.
And I will help you assess that for you. It doesn't take a lot, but just to make recommendations and can help you coordinate that thing. So
now this support group, you don't have to have a family member at Palmer Place.
No, it's
open.
It's open. Actually, we only have a couple of folks from Palmer Place there in the group. The rest of it is community folks that are just dealing with loved ones, mainly aging in place at their home. And they're, you struggle as a daughter and as a caregiver, and these ladies are struggling as daughters, taking care of a dad, taking care of a mom, and that's important. What do you do? When is the question?
And those caregiver support group events that you have, they're normally shared on the Palmer Place Facebook page,
as well as mine,
as well as yours. Okay, so
yeah.
Yeah.
It meets the first Tuesday of every month at noon, and I'm actually thinking about starting one in Hopkinsville to help serve that southern end of the county as well, not county, but Christian County area, just to help loved ones. And sometimes it's just a good way to vent, because we don't have people to vent to.
Right.
And you need to share sometimes, because you get flustered or you feel like, well, did I do that right? And we're all going to, especially with dementia patients, sometimes, our response may not be the right response, or we feel that. We feel guilty then. And I tell people, we're human, do the best you can, go back. And when you do have frustration or you're getting impatient with your loved one, it's time for you to step away and have some self-care, because it's hard. I think dementia is one of the hardest journeys for anybody, because it can last for years.
Yeah.
I read where a lady worked with her mom for like 18 years. I know I'm on year 9 of my journey. And so that's really important.
I want to get back to the quality aspect. So, in the healthcare side of things, we have, Joint Commission who come in, make sure everything is running properly. Is that the case for assisted living? Do they have like an oversight committee that comes in and makes sure patients are being treated the way that they need to be treated?
Great question. I'm glad you asked that. Yes, there is. Recently, it used to be under the Department of Aging and Independent Living called DAIL. But a couple of years ago, or legislation had been going on for several years. But in July of last year, in 2024, they came out with the new regulations. And now everything is regulated under the OIG, or the Office of Inspector General. So we have to be, as an assisted living, you have to be licensed. And then you do have certification bodies that come and do those surveys, typically every 2 years, unless they found something, and then they come back. But it's a great way. We have rules. We have to always, just like an employer does background checks and audits and things on their employee staff, we have to do that in the assisted living world. We have to have policies, procedures, things, how we're going to handle those things. So that's a great question, and yes. And then for skilled nursing facilities, it's also under the OIG. And the other thing, Medicare.gov, I always refer folks out there. That's a great resource. Click on Medicare.gov and you can bring up all the nursing homes and you can see their quality scores. And when you're choosing that, that's another avenue to look at, not only to go and see, but gives you some quality data.
That's good. I remember my maternal grandmother, she lived across the street from one of the nursing homes here in town, and the residents, they weren't taken care of properly. They would roam town.
Oh my gosh.
Do whatever they want. There was one lady, her name was Frances, and she would always come over and ask my grandmother for 25 cents so she can buy a pop. They were lively characters, but they weren't cared for properly.
Right.
So I'm glad to hear that things are being regulated to where residents are getting what they need.
Yes, exactly. Very much so.
Yeah, that's a pretty important piece.
Yeah.
So I don't know where we're at on time. I think we're probably 25 minutes in or somewhere around there, 28 minutes in. And I have to ask you this question because this was really on my mind the whole time. And it does shift gears a little bit. I think this podcast up to this point has been fabulous for people that may have aging parents, and it's very informational and is just solid. But I want to pick your brain just a little bit on how you took the leap to get into your own business. And, I know I've recently done that, and I like, this is Creative Side Podcast. So I always like to find, to me, for somebody to do that, you got to have some creative things going on in your head.
Right.
To figure that out.
Well,
could you share a little bit about that with us?
Sure. I think my passion for seniors is what drove me. And caring for my mom, I couldn't be in corporate America anymore. And so I needed some flexibility to be able to have my own schedule of sorts. And I stay very busy and I appreciate that. But it's like, for me, that was what was my driving force. I wanted to take everything that I've been allowed to experience over my career and share that knowledge and help folks, because I have seen where people struggle in this area. And so what I did is I just really thought and prayed about it for about a year before I actually pulled the trigger and did this. I got prepared. I got a website. I tried to figure out what products and service, or what, I wouldn't really have products. I do help a little bit on some technology, medical alert systems, but really what are my services going to be? And I set myself up to have like a few months living expenses and things like that. We had planned for it. My husband did support the endeavor. And so then I just did it, and I started networking. And fortunately, I had a business person approach me about helping with their business on some marketing and sales aspects. And that was my first customer in December of 2023. And so that kind of was my basis. I had one client. Yeah. And so I started. And it's amazing what God has done for me in the last year and a half. I feel very blessed. I still want to help more families individually, but having those 3 business clients helps me even help place folks. And I don't have to charge the families for my advocacy when they're going into one of my facilities or communities that we work with. But just to be there in that part. And then I just manage my expenses and try to look at it and be just recently I was doing all my social media myself, but I've expanded a little bit and asked somebody to help me. I want you to do a video for me.
We're going to do that.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think that will be another, because I think that the best way to reach people sometimes is through video. So I was honored when you all asked me to be on your podcast. I think that's important. And you just, one day at a time. And the one thing I would say at first, you get excited if you get a new client or you get a call or whatever it might be. And then you have a time when there's not anything, but just keep on. Be persistent. Be
That's
persistent. That would be my thing. And I feel like, because I was like, oh, am I doing the right thing? And you might be feeling that same thing. And it is hard as an entrepreneur. I have a whole new respect for small business owners. That part.
Our story is so similar.
I know.
And, I was in corporate America for a lot of years, and with my mom, it just got to a point where it wasn't matching well. Right. She required a little more of me, and I couldn't give what I wanted to give, in my job. Think right. about it. When you got a mother with dementia and it's progressing, and you're out of town 3 nights a week, right. 4 nights a week, or whatever that is, it's hard to do it.
Yes.
And I was in the same boat you were in. I tried to figure out, well, what can I do, to where I can make the time to be there and yet also put food on the table. And so it's tough. But one key thing you said, and there's a few ways our story lines up, and I hear from you that you're passionate about it. Well, the things that I'm doing in my business, I'm very passionate about. Yes. And you want to help people, and the things that I do is to help people as well.
Right.
And I want to do these things. Casey works with me. Cody is not on the show with us today. He works with us. And all of our mentality is the products that we build for our customers, we're doing it not only to try to make a little bit of money and make a living, but we really want that to propel their business.
Exactly. And I think you all have a great opportunity, because for me, this was my first podcast, and I was a little nervous this morning.
You're doing great.
I really feel comfortable. It's turned out to be a conversation.
Yeah,
it really is. And so I think that I had made a goal for me of 2025 that I wanted to start doing more video and just talking and sharing. And I think you have an opportunity in your business to have clients like myself that just be able to do little short videos or help things. And then you can put that out there on social media, whether that's from LinkedIn to Facebook and Instagram, and help business owners like myself and like you help each other.
Right.
And I think that's really key. So to me, you could be, and there's another thing, if I have time, I'll mention it. I learned about fractional work. And there's a whole group of people out there, similar to you and I, Shane,
Right.
that have stepped out of corporate America, but we still feel like we have value and expertise in whatever those skill sets are, and we want to use those. And so what happens is you can go in and work with businesses, especially like small. For me, my niche has been the locally owned assisted livings. I think you've talked and you work with some of the smaller vendors in the tractor world.
Outdoor power. Yeah.
Right, outdoor power. And so they don't have, as a small business owner, you don't have the resources to come in and do a great video or do social media and all that. And that's what you're for. That's where you can bring your expertise and that communication. And so you can sell it at a reasonable price. They're not buying your whole they're not hiring Shane, but they're hiring a piece of Shane.
Right.
Or they're hiring a piece of Lea Ann. And that's what I see the way I'm doing it with my assisted living and my PACE program. I'm helping them do a certain part of their whole business. And it works well for everybody.
That's exactly what we do. You know, you were in the industry, the healthcare industry for 20 plus years. I think you said I was in the outdoor power industry for 20 plus years. I know that industry, not to be boastful, but inside and out.
Right, you do.
I know what it's like when a mom and pop dealer is struggling to get their marketing going. They don't know what to do because that. As a business manager, most of our job was helping get dealers get their marketing going.
Right.
And, mom and pop dealers, they do great jobs serving their customers.
Yes.
But they're not great marketers.
Right.
And they need that little piece. And that's what, we've done. And throughout all of my career, I've always tried to, if I had to go to work every day and just go to the daily bump and grind and all that and just in no purpose, I would go crazy.
Me too.
But I've figured out a way, and if you're listening to this podcast and you haven't figured out a way how to do this, you need to find purpose in why you go.
Right.
And for me, it was helping somebody.
Right.
Even when I was with corporate America, I know I was talking to a mom and pop there that, may be struggling. They're
Right.
I've owned a small business before. I know what it's like.
Right.
But I want to be there to be someone that can help propel them.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the whole attitude of our business. That's what we want to do. It's number one that we help you win.
Right.
That's the number one thing that we want to do. Us making a living is got to be part of that.
Right.
But it's not the number one thing. We're going to make a living.
Right.
But we want to help your business win, because if you do, you're going to come back.
Right.
And
they'll share it with others.
And they'll share it with others.
As we all know, referrals are going to be our number one probably resource of well. And I know that I learned quickly. I tried to get out, be in the community. Starting, I joined Kiwanis, I joined Hopkins County Business and Professional Women's Club, all those things to get myself out there, because really, even though I'd lived in Hopkins County, I actually was working out of Lexington, Kentucky. Yeah. So it was, you don't know the local. And so I think this is just another way, another venue to have folks and share their stories and be able to do this. Another
beautiful thing I'll point out, and then we'll wrap up. Do you got anything else, Casey?
You're good. Go ahead, Shane.
I'll point this out, and this is so great. It's so great, and I know you can relate to this too, but working with corporate America, you have to fit their mode in how you deal with your customers, even though it might not be particularly the right way to deal with customers. One thing I love about my business now, being able to control it. If I make a mistake, I can go own it.
Right.
I can fix it.
Right.
I can go to that customer and say, hey, you know what? That's on me. I messed up here. I'm going to fix that for you.
Right.
And when you're working for corporate America, they don't do like that. They're always like to pass the buck.
Right.
It seems like. But anyway, Lea Ann, I really appreciate you coming on today. This has been a super good podcast
Yes,
for
it
the
has.
first
Well,
one
thank
back.
you.
What do you think, Casey?
I think it's wonderful.
Well, thank you all. I've really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed
Yeah.
just talking and getting to share. And thank you all again for having me. Appreciate it and look forward to continuing our relationships and working.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, folks. We'll be shooting on a regular basis again, and they'll be dropping once a week. So like and follow us, subscribe to our YouTube channel so you get notifications, and we'll see you next time.